everybody. Thank you first and foremost for hopping on our Plantuary virtual hangout today. So, if you're hopping on and you're wondering what is Plantuary, maybe you just happened to hop on but hadn't heard of Plantuary, I'm here to tell you all about it. Plantuary is our communal goal here at Unite for Her to help you with the goal of eating more plants. Plant foods, as you can see on my shirt, eat more plants, are going to be the ones that are richest in those antioxidant nutrients, vitamins, minerals, fibers, healthy fats, and they're going to really help nourish us from the inside out. Now, sometimes we can get carried away with New Year's resolutions and set lots and lots of goals. But we want you in Plantuary to set just some small sustainable goals to help you eat a little bit more plants each and every day. So that may be adding carrots to your next dish in whatever format you find best. It may be adding seeds or nuts on top of your oatmeal. It could be adding something like chia seed or flaxseed to a smoothie. It doesn't have to be a huge overhaul. We just want to encourage everybody to eat a little bit more of their plant foods every single day. So you can visit our Plantuary page, uniteforher.org/Plantuary, to learn all about our events. I know Sue just mentioned many of them now, but you can also check out our weekly recipes that we have uploading. So each week is themed for our different plant foods, fruits and veggies, beans and lentils, nuts, seeds, whole grains, and we're coming out with new and fresh recipes on our social media accounts and on our website. So be sure to go to the Plantuary page and also to sign our Plantuary pledge. This is your personal goal as to how you plan to participate in Plantuary and eat more plant foods. If you sign your Plantuary pledge, at the bottom, you can download your very own Plantuary certificate, and you will get entered to win our Plantuary sweepstakes to win a prize at the end of Plantuary. Our goal is to have at least 200 signups on our Plantuary pledge, and we're already at 155, so we're getting very close. And I would love for all of you to sign up to hear about how you plan to participate in Plantuary. Today, as our virtual hangout for Plantuary, we wanted to highlight different cooking and preparation methods because a lot of times some of the barrier for getting in more plants is how do I get them in? How do I add them? What do I do with them? So we thought we would highlight the versatile carrot today to show you 4 different preparation methods. So you'll join each of us in our kitchens respectively to learn a different preparation method. And we're going to start out with Catherine in her kitchen, who is going to be showing us how to roast carrots. So Catherine, I will let you go ahead and take it away.
All right. Thank you so much, Aubrey. So I will be roasting carrots today. And honestly, roasting is my favorite cooking method for vegetables overall, for almost any vegetable. Roasting vegetables is a simple and delicious way to bring out all of the flavors in vegetables, and you can make it your own thing. There's different ways of seasoning, and today I'll be doing the carrots. I'll make it very simple. So let's start off with just grabbing carrots. I've already pre-cleaned these. You can take the skin off if you like. I personally like it better like this. I feel like I get a better browning effect. So I'm gonna grab my knife and I'm just gonna make it a little bit of a chopping. So I'm gonna take the tips off, just a little bit here, this side, then the end, and then now I'm gonna cut it in half. I'm gonna grab one, see how that rolled right there. That is not safe. So I'm gonna grab it again and I'm gonna cut just like a little tiny piece so that the carrot is not just round anymore. So it gives it a little bit of a stability there. So now I'm gonna keep it safe like that. I'm gonna grab my knife and then I'm gonna just chop a little bit, about an inch size. So I'm gonna do that again. A tip here is to keep it with similar size. Since we're going to be putting it in the oven, if we keep the sizes of the vegetable, whether it's carrots or any other vegetables in similar in size, it's going to cook evenly, and that's what we want. I'm going to grab the other side and do the same. About an inch, not too big, not too small. I'm gonna grab another carrot. I'm gonna do about 3 carrots. Take the tips off. And then keep it very similar. So when we're roasting vegetables, the type of baking method that we're using is called conventional baking. So with conventional baking, the way that it works is that there is a fan inside of the oven that is distributing the hot air throughout the whole oven. And then this makes for it to cook more evenly and for that browning effect, and that gives that crunchiness. Now, air fryers, which have become more and more popular, use the same type of method. So it's not really frying, it's actually baking, but with a convection method, because air fryers are smaller. So like the one that I have behind me, the fan spreads the hot air a little bit more quicker. So that's why it cooks a little bit faster, and honestly, it's a little bit more convenient. So I'll be doing the same for the same carrots, the same seasoning and all. I'm just gonna do a batch in the oven and another one on the air fryer. So that way we can see the difference, if any, right? Because it's the same baking method. All right. Oops. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna season them. So this is where you can get creative. So I'm just gonna put everything in a bowl. And then what I have here, which is key, is olive oil. So that's gonna prevent for the vegetables to be dry. It's gonna help to spread out the seasoning a little bit more evenly. So I'm just gonna add a little bit of olive oil. I'll show you guys what it looks like, about a tablespoon. Depends on how many vegetables you are roasting. And then now what I have here is thyme. Just gonna add some in here. And I have a little bit of salt. All right, and some pepper. So carrots are already sweet. Another way to boost out that sweetness is to use something even sweeter, like honey or maple. So let's see if you guys see here. Then now I'm just gonna make sure that everything is coated. Everything is evenly distributed. One thing that you always want to make sure that you do when you are baking is to preheat your oven. You don't want everything to be ready and your oven to be just off, because then that's going to take a little bit more time. And this is supposed to be quick and simple. So I've already preheated my oven. For roasting vegetables, we usually do 400 Fahrenheit. And then depending on the vegetable, it might take a little bit longer. So for carrots, depending on how big your cut is, it might take between 20 to 30 minutes. And it also depends on how crunchy or how brown you want them to be. So I'm gonna spread out some here. When you're spreading out your carrots, make sure that they have some spacing between them. Remember that there is a hot air cooking them. So the more space that they have, the better and the
I
evenly.
don't know, my kid in them home.
So I'm gonna add a little bit more here. Okay, so that's it. They're evenly distributed. I added a baking sheet in the bottom to make sure that that it's a little bit easier to clean, honestly. So then I'm gonna put this in the oven for 20 minutes. And then now with the air fryer, just gonna turn it on. It's also at 400. I didn't need to preheat it. It depends on the air fryer. Some say to preheat them for 3 minutes. mine, I haven't noticed a difference when I do that or not. So for here, I'm just going to toss whatever I have left. Same concept. You don't want everything to be all overcrowded, because then that might take longer and then it might not cook evenly. So air fryer, same. I'm gonna do 400 Fahrenheit, but I'm gonna cut the time in half. I'm gonna do 10 minutes.
Hey, Catherine, I have a couple questions for you while you're doing that. Is that okay?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so we're trying to understand, can you discuss a countertop air fryer, which is what you have, and how that's different from an oven air fryer? And I really don't know much about air fryers, so I couldn't even pop in there. I don't know if you have any experience with oven air fryers.
Let me just, it's a little bit low. So oven air fryer and regular air fryer.
Versus just your versus your countertop one. Is there a difference? Could you discuss countertop air fryer versus oven air fryer? I didn't know that an oven air fryer, like I didn't know that was in an oven, right? Like I wasn't quite sure of that.
Yeah, so the difference is probably that it's gonna reach the temperature a little bit higher. And then sometimes it'll use like a different type of mechanism to get to that temperature. So when you open your regular oven, it has like a top burner and a bottom burner. So sometimes it'll have an additional heating mechanism to get to that temperature quicker. But it's the same concept. It's just heat, a lot of heat with the fan circulating the hot air throughout the food.
Okay. And then the other question we had was, can you roast without oil, use veggie broth, maybe?
Yeah, you can definitely try that. So that's likely gonna not make it as crunchy, but it's gonna prevent for it to dry out. So that's that could be a good alternative.
Okay, perfect. They were the only two.
Okay.
And then, of course, I actually put the handout in the chat if anybody wanted to pull that up so you could just see the recipes that she's creating.
All right, and then so while that is in the oven and in the air fryer, I'm going to pass the carrot over to Aubrey to see what she's going to show us.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. Oh, I got it. Perfect. And so I will get ready to show you the next preparation method, which actually isn't cooking per se, but I'm going to show you how to quick pickle. So a lot of times I'll get questions about eating produce raw, and sometimes we want to enjoy produce raw and crunchier versus cooked through. And quick pickling is a great way to enjoy that raw produce item, and it has a delicious tang to it. So there's a lot of applicable uses for a quick pickled vegetable, be it carrot, radishes, celery, whatever you have. And this method is highly transferable between different vegetables. So to start, we're going to put some stuff on the stovetop. This is our pickling liquid that we're going to start with. And a quick pickle just means that it happens a little bit faster. You can pickle over long term by canning and jarring items, but today I'm going to show you a quick pickling method that gets things that tangy flavor within just about an hour or so. So in my pot, I am going to put 2/3 a cup of water and 2/3 a cup of vinegar. So I have white distilled vinegar here. However, you could really use whatever vinegar you'd like. I would say white distilled vinegar, maybe a rice vinegar, or an apple cider vinegar would be good options to start with that many of you likely have in your cabinets. Right. And like I said, 2/3 cup of water as well. And this makes about a 16-ounce mason jar of your produce item that you're pickling. I'm also going to put in half a teaspoon of salt and then 1 tablespoon of sugar. However, you could use sugar, you could use honey, you could omit it, but that sweet and tangy balance is really important for that pickling. So I would recommend either using a sugar, a honey, a maple syrup, even just a little bit just to help balance it out. Especially for folks who are experiencing any taste changes from chemotherapy or other treatments, a pickled vegetable could be just that acidic punch that you need to help break through any of those taste changes. So You probably are familiar with your Cancer Fighting Kitchen cookbook, the FAST method, FASS, fat, acid, salt, sweet, is just one helpful way to add in a little bit of extra flavor to help those shine through to combat those taste changes. So I'm going to turn my stove on high and I'm going to just give it a little whisk. What we're going to do is we're just going to bring this to a simmer until the salt and the sugar are dissolved. That's it. Doesn't need to get crazy hot or anything of that nature. Now, I wanted to also show you today, I know that Catherine showed us a chop. We're actually all going to also highlight different ways that we can cut up and prep our produce items. So I'm going to show you how to do a matchstick carrot, which you very well could, of course, purchase matchsticks carrots in that format at the store. But if you have a bag of carrots and you're thinking you want to do it yourself, I wanted to show you all how to do it. So first, I'm just going to peel my carrot. I like to get the skin off. I wash it still and peel it just to get that extra off of the exterior, but I'm not super strict with it. If there's little bits unpeeled, that's okay with me. And I always save these peels. If you are somebody who has a garden or anything of that nature, you can put it in a compost and it helps to kind of make that very nutrient dense and rich soil that is going to nourish the foods you're eating. So I'm going to chop off the end and I'm going to chop off the top just as Catherine did. And now what we want for a matchstick. So I'm going to chop it in half. Catherine mentioned with safety, we want it to be flat. And to get a matchstick, we really want them to be similar sizes. So I'm actually just going to cut the sides off of this to make it into just a big rectangle. So I'm slicing off all of the rounded sides. We're going to use them, don't worry. And then I have a rectangle. It is certainly not a perfect rectangle, but that is okay. And I'm going to take it and I'm just going to slice it lengthwise. You could make it as thick or as thin as you'd like. No pressure there. And of course, you can use any type of chop really for pickling. I like this matchstick method because I feel like it almost helps to absorb more of the flavor. Because if you think about it, these tiny skinny pieces, they have a lot more surface area all around it, especially cut surface area that's going to absorb some of that pickling liquid. So now what I'm doing is I'm just chopping lengthwise. Sometimes I just like to set my knife down and I'll press on the top just to kind of get through. It's a good tactic too if you're having any dexterity issues as well. And so I'm taking it, slicing it, and now you can see I've got some little matchsticks. And what I'm going to do, you can of course continue to chop the second portion, but I'm going to put them into my mason jar with some matchsticks that I already have in here. So I'll show you, it's kind of just a jam-packed mason jar. We've got quite a bit of carrots in here. And I'm going to turn around and check on my liquid mixture. So our mixture isn't simmering yet, but everything is almost at a simmer and almost absorbed in. So while we wait for that, I'm just going to chop up this last little bit of carrot. So same thing, I'm going to cut the sides off. And I'm just only going to put in what I can fit in here. You don't want to overcrowd your mason jar because then nothing's going to be able to get absorbed. So I'm just going to cut a couple additional matchsticks just to fill in the empty little gaps here. But I'm not going to do anything too crazy or go overboard. Right. So I've got a couple extra that I'll pop in here. And I'll just shove them down. It's okay if some of them like break or snap when you're pushing them in. You just want them all to fit because we want the liquid to be able to cover all of the carrots inside of here. All right, and so now we're at a simmer. I'm going to give this one final stir. I'll turn the heat off. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take my mixture and the vinegar. It'll just hit you in the nose. I'm going to make sure everything's in the mason jar. And I'm going to pour my mixture over top of my pickles. my carrots. I mean, my pickled carrots. And it's perfect. It fills right up to the brim. Again, this is perfect for a 16-ounce mason jar that is mostly filled. I'll show you. We've got liquid all the way up to the top here. So some of these may not necessarily touch the pickling liquid. However, as it starts to pickle, always shift things around, give the jar a shake to make sure that everything is getting touched by the pickling liquid. So I'm going to go ahead and put it in the fridge. This ideally needs to chill for at least an hour. I will say there have been many times that I have said, I need pickled carrots in 15 minutes, and I've just let it sit for 15 minutes, and that's okay too. It still gets a little bit of a pickle, but the key here is the longer you can let it pickle, the more flavor it's going to have. So I'll show you these in a little bit. I'll show you what they look like. I also have some that I started to pickle over the weekend. So I'll show you what those look like too. These are going to last in the fridge for a few weeks. So you just want to be mindful of using them before you lose them, but know that they're going to give us a lot of life, especially in that pickling liquid. That brine helps to keep them a little bit fresher. So I'm going to pop these in the fridge and we will revisit them later. And with that, that is how you quick pickle and matchstick cut a carrot. And so I am going to go ahead and pass it to Erin, who is going to show you our next cooking method. So Erin, can you reach that carrot over there?
I'm grabbing it. I got it.
Perfect.
I got it. Excellent. So thank you. And I know we had some questions in the chat just about pickling, so I'm sure we'll have time at the end. But what I will be demoing today is how to steam. So there are lots of different methods for steaming vegetables. I'll also be demoing when you see a recipe and it calls for rounds for vegetables, what that means, what that looks like. So I will be demoing 3 different ways to steam vegetables because I think the most common way to steam is by using a steam basket, which can look like a lot of different things. But that's a tool that not all of us have. And so I'll show you 2 other ways as well. So first, this for me is what I use as my steaming basket. I like it because it opens, it expands. I can fit it into varying size pots and pans depending on the quantity that I'm steaming. And it folds and it stores really nicely. So this is stainless steel, but again, you can get bamboo. You can get ones that are just a stagnant position. So you can buy them everywhere. So if you have a steamer basket, really convenient, but again, you don't need it. The other thing that you will find with the steamer basket is they have little legs because in your pan, they will rest above the boiling water. So that will be the first thing that I'm going to do to get us started is we will be using water to steam and we want to bring that up to a boil before we add our vegetables. So using method 1, using a steaming basket, I'm using a medium-sized saucepan and I'm going to add some water to this. You want about 1 inch. The key is when you put your steam basket in, you don't want it to rise up through the bottom. So if you feel like, oh, I overfilled it a little bit, just dump a little bit of that water out. But you want enough to create a boil, to create some steam. And optional is you can also add a little pinch of salt to this water. So think of this like you're cooking pasta and you season your cooking water with a little bit of salt. It can add the essence of a little bit of flavor, but again, it is totally optional. So before our steamer basket goes in, I'm putting this on my stovetop onto high heat. I want to bring this up to a boil. So that's my first step. Okay. Steamer basket method number 1. Our second method is using a frying pan. So I have a frying pan here. You can use any type of saute pan. The point being you want one that you can fit a lid on top. So this is a rather large one. So this is typically what I use if I want to steam a large quantity of vegetables. Typically something like green beans, if I want to quick steam them, I would use this size, but it's got a nice fitting lid on top. So I've already gone ahead and I've added about an inch of water on the bottom. And I also will season my water here just to infuse a little bit of flavor. And I will turn my burner on here to bring this to a boil as well. These are our first two prep methods. Our third method for steaming is via the microwave, which we know is a very healthy method of cooking. And because typically microwave cooking takes just a fraction of the time, it maintains the nutrient value of what we're usually microwaving. So for something like carrots or steaming any vegetable, it really ensures that we're maintaining the integrity of those nutrients, which is really great. So for that, all you want to use is a microwave safe bowl, and you want to have something that you can put on top of it. If it comes with a microwave safe lid, that's great. Typically, I use a small plate, to be perfectly honest, and I just place it on top. And so what we'll do, you never, ever, ever, ever want to use a foil. If we've all made that mistake before, we know what happens with foil in the microwave. B, you don't want to use plastic wrap because we may have made that mistake again. So you want something that is microwave safe. That's why I typically like to use a plate. And then for this, we're adding just a little bit of water. Think 1 to 2 tablespoons, enough to create a little bit of heat. And again, you can add a little bit of seasoning salt to this on the bottom, very, very minimal to infuse. So these are our initial steps for steaming. Now, while we wait, let's prep our carrots. So the chopping method that I will demo, like I said, are rounds. So rounds essentially mean we are creating like coin, cylindrical size pieces, typically in something that is shaped like a carrot. So it is shaped like a cylinder. So think carrots, think zucchini, summer squash, eggplant, right? So anything where when you cut it, you're creating discs. So you can create thicker size or thinner, depending on what your personal preference is, how quickly you want it to cook, what the type of recipe you're making is. I'm thinking of the vegetable gratin that I made for one of my cooking classes. Everything was in a round and we layered it, so it was fairly thin. So the first thing that we'll do, I already cleaned and I did peel my carrots, but as Catherine said, you can use a vegetable scrubber and just keep the skin on. I'm cutting off the edge. I'm cutting off the edge here. We'll discard those. And then we're just going to cut them into like coin cylinders. You want to make sure you're tucking in all of your fingers, and we're just creating little discs. These are your rounds. I like to go a little bit thinner. You could certainly use this cutting method for something like roasting. I probably would make them a little bit thicker, but for something like this, these will cook up really quickly. Cooking time for steaming also will vary depending on, just like roasting, the density of your vegetables. So for things like zucchini, if you're quick steaming, they'll cook up fairly quickly. Most of the time, most vegetables will. But carrots may take a little bit longer because you're hearing that crunch. It's a denser vegetable. Okay. So my water here is boiling. I've got some carrots to steam. So you can see this happens very, very quickly. So what I'll do for these, I'll take my first carrot. We'll season these when we're done. And I will very gently place them in my boiling water here. I'll place the lid on top, leaving a little space for venting, and I will let them steam for a few minutes. So you just want to make sure you're really gentle adding them to the water so you don't burn yourself. So I will just really gently add them in. I'm putting my lid on. I'm allowing a little bit of venting, and they'll take a few minutes. My water over here is also steaming, so let's prep another vegetable or another carrot. Again, cutting off the edges. Same cutting method.
Erin, while you're doing that, can I give you a couple questions?
Absolutely.
Okay. So if we roast or steam carrots with the leafy greens, do we roast at the same temperature and time, or should we roast and steam separately?
Great question. I would typically roast and steam separately. So with steaming, you know, because there's such a dramatic time difference with leafy greens and something like a carrot, and it's all fairly quickly, I would do one and then I would do the other. With roasting, you have the benefit of you would use the same temperature, but now you've got a larger surface area to work with. So sometimes what I'll do is if I'm roasting multiple vegetables on one baking sheet, and I know one is going to finish earlier, say I'm doing potatoes and broccoli, I'll throw them on. One half will have broccoli, one half will have potatoes. I'll take my broccoli out when it's ready. I'll leave the potatoes back in and I'll let them finish on their own. So it really depends. I hope that answers that question. Okay,
Yep.
Real quickly, adding my carrots to my steamer basket, I'm going to very gently add those in here and I'm going to let them steam so that steam is naturally coming through. I'm actually going to just also vent a little lid there. And then let's prep our last method, same starting point, cut off the ends and into the microwave. So you're microwaving on high for 4 to 6 minutes. So I will put my microwave on for carrots for 6 minutes because again, they're a little bit more dense. Whereas other vegetables, I might do a little bit less. Like green beans, I would definitely do less. So they're in a very little bit of water. My plate goes on top, right into the microwave, and we'll get that started. So those are our quick 3 methods for steaming. Before I pass my carrot to Michelle, any other questions about steaming vegetables?
We do. We have a couple. Okay. So one is just a question, and I never heard about this, Erin. Have you ever heard about the baskets that fit inside the rice cookers to steam?
Yes.
Do you have one of those?
No, I don't.
Okay.
But you could absolutely use that. Yeah, you could think about and experiment a little bit that. To be perfectly honest, I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the timing and how to do it, but absolutely, you know, the cook time again would be really, really quick. But I mean, it would be a great appliance to try that with.
Yeah. Awesome. And I'm just going to run back up. There's just one question about oil because we get this all the time. And this is back over with Catherine as well. And is there a particular type of oil that we need to use? Olive oil, avocado oil, etc. is one better than the other? And I know it has to do with high heat. So
yeah, you just want to be mindful of temperature that you're cooking with. So, you know, that 400 degrees is a pretty easy middle ground. So you could get away with using an olive oil, which is a medium heat cooking. So anything really above 375 to 400, you're at risk of burning your olive oil. So if you're cooking on a much higher heat, or if you're using your oven at a higher temperature, 400, 425, 450, you want to use a high smoke point oil, which would be something like avocado, something like grapeseed, canola, your vegetable oils, which means they burn at a higher temperature so you can cook with them at a higher temperature. So those are typically the types of oils that we reach for if you are searing something, if you are high heat roasting, if you're browning. Sometimes even if you're using a wok and you're just sort of really quick high heat cooking, you want to make sure that you're not going to ultimately burn your cooking oil because it will affect the entire recipe.
Okay. And then how long for your fry pan method? Miriam was wondering.
Same thing, very quickly, 4 to 6 minutes, 4 to 5 minutes, if that. So very quickly. All of these methods are, they're perfect for like a weeknight vegetable addition to what you're already making because they just take minutes. It might be a little bit longer, again, based on density of your vegetable and how big you cut it, but still you might add on another minute or two.
Okay, wonderful. And just for our audience, I know there's a couple of pickling questions. I will wait until we have Aubrey back front and center, and then we'll answer those as well.
Perfect.
All right,
okay.
You ready to pass that carrot? Because, everybody's very excited about the way we are passing the carrot, I must say.
I am, and I'm very excited to pass it to Michelle. So I'm going to turn it over to her. I'm passing it over because she's got a great little method, and I know she's going to share a fancy way of cooking, of slicing with her, I think a julienne. So she's like a pro at that.
Yes.
You got it? I just threw it over to you. Great.
I was over there, Erin. You didn't have to hold it that long.
You're good.
Oh. Hi, everybody. Good to see everyone. So many familiar names. I love that. So the last cooking process that we will talk about today is sauteing. So this is actually goes along with a little bit about what Erin was talking about with the oil. So we are not high heat cooking. So any of the oils that you would like, olive, avocado, the nut oils, vegetable oil, canola oil, you are safe to use that, because for sauteing, we will be using a frying pan. So I'm using a little one because I'm just going to be doing carrots this evening. But depending on how many vegetables you'll be using, obviously you might want to use a larger pan. So the cut method that I will be using is called ribbons. So they're very elegant, they're very pretty, very delicate. So it's not going to take a lot of time to saute. Now, if I was going to be sauteing other vegetables with my carrots, say you were sauteing some beans like snow peas or broccoli or the stem of bok choy, you'd want to put them in first because they'll take a little bit longer. But with the carrots, you will see here that they are very thin and delicate and you don't need to cook them for very long. So I'm going to start warming this at actually medium low, again, because I'm just using carrots. They're nice and thin. I don't need a high heat for this. Another feature of sauteing is you're just using a little bit of oil. We are not frying. We're not doing any of that, just a very light saute with a little bit of oil. So I would say I'm probably only going to use a little drop, maybe half a teaspoon. And again, if you are incorporating more vegetables, using a bigger pan, you're going to want to add a little bit more. So if you're using a recipe, hopefully it will specify that for you. So with my carrot here, I have a rather large carrot. So this is going to make long peels. So the safest way to do this is lay your carrot flat on your cooking surface and have your support hand at the root at the top. So this has already been scrubbed. With all our root vegetables, we should be scrubbing them really well. Even as Catherine did, she left the peel on, which is fine, but make sure you're scrubbing that really well. So peeled, scrubbed and peeled. I'm going to put my support hand at the top towards the root end. And I'm taking I like to use a Y-shaped peeler. And all I'm doing is applying a little bit of pressure and just going all the way down. How simple, right? How simple. So I'll just do a few more peels. You just keep going down all the way until the end. I feel like I got the fancy procedure or cutting procedure. They're so pretty. And what looks really nice too are the different colored carrots. So if we're using a purple carrot or a white carrot, they are extra beautiful because the outside will be orange, but the inside will have, or the outside will be purple or white, and then inside you'll have a different color. So if you really want to impress your friends and family, use different colored carrots. All right. Because these are very long, I am going to cut them in half because we don't want them hanging out of our mouth, right? When we saute them and we go to enjoy them. So I'll just stack them on top of each other. And the nice thing, not just about carrots, but with all of our root vegetables, they can handle those hardier herbs, thyme, rosemary, parsley, Italian seasoning, marjoram. So that's what we're going to do. So I'll do a couple cuts. There we go. So again, I just want to get close up and you can see how nice and thin and delicate these are. Because they're so thin and delicate, we also want to be careful. So I'm just going to put a little drop of oil in here. We also want to be careful because we don't want to fully cook the carrot where it's just mushy or it doesn't look pretty. The colors start to go away. We still want it to maintain that bright orange color. So just toss these in. Add a little bit of salt, a little bit of pepper, and you can put whatever herbs on. A little bit of garlic powder, any type of herb or spice that you would like. I like to use tongs because they're so delicate. It's just easier to grab and lift up and turn them over. All right, while they are sauteing a little bit, I decided to use some fresh thyme. So thyme has the stem here is a little thick. I don't think you really want to be chewing that. And then it has these little delicate leaves. So you just take your finger and you run it down, and you take your thumb and your index finger, you run it down, and it takes the herbs off. You can leave it just like this, or you can give them just a little bit of a rough chop. Now, to maintain the scent and the freshness of the herbs, we're going to put them in last. I don't want to saute with my herbs. Guess what? They're already done. They are already done. So I will throw in my thyme. Give it a little quick toss here. Turn my heat off because, as I said, they are done. Grab a plate. It's white, so it's going to really show off those vibrant colors. And there we go. I'm finishing up in my all in my one segment. That's how quick this is. And look how beautiful. Fancy and beautiful, right? All right, so that is how to saute. That is how you can make pretty ribbons from your carrots. And I believe I'm going to toss it back to Aubrey. I don't need to pass the carrots because we're all done with that. Or am I going back to Catherine?
We're going to Catherine. Yep, we'll go to Catherine, but we have one question here for you. So is there any nutritional value in the difference between the different color carrots?
No. So, well, as far as vitamins and minerals, pretty much the same. But with the purple carrots, whenever you see purple, blues, and reds, those represent a different plant chemical. So particularly anthocyanins. So they contain a lot of antioxidants to help fight the free radicals in our body that can do some damage to our DNA and could potentially increase the risk of any type of chronic disease. That's why you're always hearing about foods with antioxidants. So make sure you're getting real foods with all the colors. So those are the purple carrots. The orange carrots they get this pretty orange color. Also yellow bell peppers from a plant chemical or a compound called beta carotene. When we consume beta carotene, so when we eat our carrots, it converts to vitamin A in our body, which is so important for eye health and cell function. Now, the white carrots, specifically, I'm not sure which plant chemicals are in the white carrots, but it's going to represent something else. So that's why we're always saying eat the rainbow, because every color is going to represent something different. So I hope that answered your question.
It does. And that, we talk about white vegetables all the time. Like, white vegetables are good. Like, they got such a bad rap,
Yes.
So I'm glad you brought up the white carrot. I am glad you brought that one up. Okay. There is no passing this time. So I am going to replace you here, Michelle. We are done with our little magic trick and we're bringing back Aubrey. All right, Aubrey. I'm sorry, Catherine.
All right. So I have both of them ready. I have the air fried and the oven baked. I don't know if you guys can tell the difference. Can anyone tell me which one is which? I'm gonna poke them too. So the way that I knew that these were ready is because I'm able to stick a fork in it and I can get to the other side without an issue, and it's not too soft, not too hard. So same on this side. What do you guys think? Any difference?
Gosh, I don't know.
Any guess?
I would say the
think
right
left
is
hand.
roasted.
I think the left hand is roasted.
This side?
Left, yeah, that one roasted.
Yeah, me too.
You're actually right. Yeah, because
That-
the bottom is
Because of that. Yep, exactly.
yeah, but they're the same.
They
So
look so wonderful. I can smell them. They're great.
yeah, and they taste the same. They were seasoned the same. The only difference is if you're doing that small batch baking. If you have an air fryer, it just takes a short amount of time. The carrots took I took them out at 9 minutes, and then at the oven I took them out about 24 minutes. I would just say still whatever vegetable you're roasting or air frying, keep an eye on it. I usually use a minimum for the air fryer for 8 minutes, and then I just keep checking. For the oven, if it's something like carrots, so it's like a harder vegetable, a minimum of 20 minutes, and then just keep checking.
Amazing. I think about air frying because a lot of people, obviously, it's very popular and they're thinking about, I think, cutting fat, right? If you're frying, right? You're thinking about cutting fat. But, can you share if it is something that you're doing with carrots? Are we concerned about, the oil that you're frying your carrots up in and popping? They have, if it's an olive oil, it's really healthy oil, right? An avocado oil, it's a healthy oil. So there's this fear sometimes of fat, I hear, and fat is important for us, right? So could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. Especially like I said, so even though it says air frying, it's not technically frying or what we think about when we do deep frying. So the temperature that we set it to is key. So I could have even done less than 400. So for something like olive oil, like Erin mentioned, so it is a medium heat. So I could do a little bit less than 375, and then just cook it for a longer period of time to preserve the nutrients and the healthy fats. So like the unsaturated fats, which help with anti-inflammatory properties. So if you are doing something, you can actually not use as much oil. You can use maybe just like a drizzle. There might be times where I don't even use an oil if it's something like broccoli. So a vegetable that has a little bit more of a high water content, so it's not as hard. You can just put it in the air fryer without any oil, and that can work as well.
Okay. Terrific. I don't think there's any more questions here. I think that's it.
Yeah, so then next we have Aubrey to
I'm
go
gonna pass
over.
over to Aubrey.
Yeah,
Yep,
pass
you
it
got
over
it.
to Aubrey.
All right. Thank you, Catherine. Love your
Yes,
shirt
thank
too.
you, Catherine.
Where'd you get those cute shirts? Let me guess.
Aubrey, this is sponsored by Aubrey.
Yes, everybody for Christmas got a Eat More Plants shirt, but mine is actually a different color by accident. So I am back with our quick pickle, although I do know that there were some questions in the chat. So before I
There
kind of
was.
dive in, I would love to make sure I answer those.
Perfect. Yeah. So one of the things was, what's the best vegetable for pickling? Yeah, that's such a hard one, because
That is
it's
such a
pretty
hard
amazing
question.
what you can pickle now. I would never know, like cauliflower. And it's like, oh my gosh, we just don't think of that. We think of onions and cucumbers, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I would say, I mean, it's very much a personal preference. So it's not that there's a best, one is going to be the most nutritious to pickle. I would say red onions pickled, and I feel like I saw that in the chat, are so delicious. And it's
good.
very fun because it turns the water of the pickling liquid kind of like a pinkish color. Cauliflower is also delicious. And I do like radishes as well, because if you've ever had radishes, they have a bit of a spicy kind of flavor to them. Whereas I feel like the pickling elevates it, not making it more spicy, but it kind of just enhances maybe more of the sweet notes to it. So those are probably some of my favorite, along with the carrots too.
Yeah. And then another one was just talking about, do you eat pickled carrots raw, or do you cook them, Aubrey?
Good question. I eat them raw. I mean, you certainly could cook them up afterwards and they would likely retain that pickled flavor, but traditionally pickled vegetables are eaten raw. So great for on top of a salad. Sometimes I'll use them like with hummus, either on top or dipping them in hummus. There's a lot of different ways you can use them, but really any way you would use a raw produce item, think about using a pickled produce item.
And you wouldn't like blanch your vegetables and then pickle them, would you?
Not
You would always use them
necessarily.
raw.
So they'll
Okay.
still retain, yeah, all of that pickling flavor just from cutting them up, chopping them up raw, and placing them in the pickling liquid. When you're blanching them, you're kind of like pre-cooking them a little bit, which blanching is a great method, especially if you want to freeze any produce items. Whereas pickled produce, not always the best frozen. But I would say you can certainly just leave them raw and then go right ahead and put them in the pickling liquid.
Okay, I think we're all caught up, Aubrey.
All right, perfect. Well, I wanted to show you both. So this is the carrots in the pickling liquid we just made, and they're already starting to soften a little bit from the pickling liquid. So I shook it up. All of my carrots that were at the top, they're now actually in these beautiful straight rows. So it really worked out perfectly. I have just the right amount in here. However, the container is still warm. So we want to try to let it pickle for a little bit longer if we can. Again, if you're in a crunch or a rush, no big deal. If you can only pickle it for 10 minutes, they'll still retain some of that flavor. But here I have my carrots that I pickled for a couple days. The water, you might not be able to see, but the water is kind of like a pale orange color. Again, as we pickle, oftentimes some of that color seeps into the water, not meaning that the nutrients are seeping out. It's just all kind of connecting. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to drain this, and then I'm going to put them on our plate so that you can see what they look like. I'm just going to drain out all that pickling liquid. If
All right,
your
I have
carrots,
a question now because I'm seeing you drain
what's
that. Okay, so could you take, I'm such a resourceful cook.
Yeah.
You know this, right? You raid my refrigerator and tell me to throw things out. So if I take the pickles and
Mhm.
save the pickling and put new pickle or new carrots in there,
Mhm.
does it still work the same?
See why you couldn't do that? I would say that a lot of that pickling flavor or that, seeping in process oftentimes happens because of that warmth of the pickling liquid at first when you're boiling it together. So if you have the pickling liquid, it's probably cold. But you could certainly use that and put in new carrots. I would say you'd have to soak them a little bit longer, just being mindful of how long you're using that pickling liquid. If you have liquid from 2 months ago, maybe we're refreshing the liquid, but if you
Totally.
make pickled vegetables and then 2 days later you want to make some more, I would say certainly still fresh and you could use that. You might just have to pickle them a little longer since it's not warm.
Okay.
But that was a really good question.
Thank
I know
you,
you
Aubrey.
probably, your heart sank as I poured out the pickling liquid.
I was.
But these are our pickled matchstick carrots. They are a little bit flimsier, meaning that a lot of that liquid has seeped in, but they've got still a beautiful crunch while also having that pickled flavor. So just another fun way to cut carrots, but also enjoy them.
Perfect. All right. You were
Awesome.
inspiring people to pickle.
Amazing. Send me all of your
Amazing.
pickled pictures.
Yes, that would be a fun post.
Yeah.
All right. Ready to bring Erin? You ready to take us home?
Yeah, let's do it. I will say that we do reuse and we will remake pickles if we buy like a jar of commercially made pickles from the store. We will cut up cucumbers and like once more reuse that.
Yay. Okay.
But I will say Aubrey's right. So like the flavor isn't as pungent the second
Yeah,
time around, but I
totally.
have learned that you can reuse that liquid. So we will do that. So, all right. So all my veggies are steamed and they really took no time at all. This is pretty much a foolproof method because you don't have to worry about if I take the lid off, am I releasing too much steam? You don't have to worry about any of that jazz. So periodically take the lid off. What you're shooting for, just like Catherine said, you want them to be fork tender so that your fork can move through it. It still stays pretty intact, but you can see it sort of fell off on its own. And then, so these were our carrots that were in our fry pan method. These were our carrots, same. I kept going back and checking them in our steamer basket method. And then these were our microwave method, which you can see they did sort of shrink in size a little bit. So a lot of times, even with roasting, our veggies will lose some of their size as the water sort of evaporates, but they did get a little smaller, but still fork tender and really delicious. The last thing you want to do is just season as you want. And there's a lot of different ways that you could season your veggies while they're still warm. So very traditionally, you can add a little dash of an oil. I have a little bit of olive oil here, and then your favorite dried seasoning. So I have one of my favorites is Trader Joe's 21 seasoning salute. It's a salt-free. So for those that are watching their salt intake, and I just add a little bit and give it a mix to my vegetable that I've steamed. And then you can go ahead and enjoy. Another thing, another way that I like to flavor is adding a little bit of vinegar. So sometimes I'll add a little dash of a balsamic vinegar or a red wine vinegar, and then I give that a mix, and that's really good as well. Or you could just keep them plain, and maybe I'm doing a little bit of salt and a little bit of my favorite dried herbs. It could be a seasoning blend. It could be, something just like something like thyme or rosemary on its own. And then again, you would just season your steamed vegetables while they're still warm. Now, I will say, both of my stovetop methods, I drained from the remaining water once they were done. So have a colander nearby. My microwave method, all of my water was absorbed. So just to keep that note, so if you have residual water, again, it doesn't mean that you've done something wrong. But if it's there, you can just drain it and then go ahead and enjoy your vegetables. So with that, that is 3 ways of steaming carrots or any kind of vegetable.